everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. In addition to wheat, continued dry weather is also impacting canola, prompting producers to start thinking about summer crops. We begin today with our Extension Cropping System Specialist, Josh Lofton.
Unfortunately and fortunately, we're in about the same spot we were a month ago and 2 months ago and 3 months ago. Is that we kind of went into winter, and since then we've stayed in winter, which is a good thing for canola. It's not been really cold and then really warm, then really cold and really warm. So that's a good thing for canola. Once it kind of went into dormancy, it's stayed for the most part. The unfortunate thing for the canola is we are starting to see very, very small pockets around the state green up a little bit. Yeah, last week we had 60s and 70-degree temperature, and if we take a look right here with the canola that we kind of found here, anything that has like distorted or damaged tissue was probably here in the fall. Right. But what we're starting to see is some of these new leaves that don't have anything. We're starting to see them kind of perk up a little bit and get a little more link to them and grow a little bit more than we'd like to see when we're still pretty deep into winter and we don't have any soil moisture available. So really time will tell. We're not in a bad spot. Right. We're not in a great spot either. So time will tell. The next couple of weeks will kind of tell the story of the canola season this year. If we get some timely rains and we warm up slowly, this could still be a really good crop. If it warms up very rapidly with little moisture, what we're going to do is we're going to wind up in the same situation we were last year with very little vegetative growth before that canola plant starts going reproductive, and it potentially could hurt yields then at that point.
So here we are in the middle of February, and we're not out of the cold season yet, but we are going to be having those warmer days show up too. I always say never count out a snow until after spring break. So if we do get that snow, will that hurt the canola crop?
The good thing with canola is that we always say if we can get it to green up in the spring, we're going to have a crop. You're going to be able to harvest something. So the benefit with canola over wheat is it is very flexible in the spring. Even really late season freezes, we could see some pods not fill, but that reproductive structure of canola is very flexible. We can still get a very, very nice yield even if we get some later season freezes and some snow. A snow would not be hurtful right now. Any moisture would be good moisture at this point in time.
As we switch gears from a winter crop to say a summer crop, what are some options aside from the old standbys for summer crops for Oklahoma producers?
Well, we'll go through this whole segment without saying the word cotton, because I think that's going to be by far the biggest option of this year. I think the prices are nice. Guys are going to grow cotton in areas such as the Panhandle that have not seen cotton in several years. So cotton's still a really nice option with the new technology, everything out there. Of course, we talked about corn and soybeans, and milo is still a really good option. The biggest push I'm hearing this year is sesame. We're going to see probably a lot more acres of sesame than we have in the last couple years. It's going to be a really big year for sesame. The challenge with it is we don't have a whole lot of data, so the institutional knowledge is really low. And the other thing is that our biggest thing that we do have data on is there's not a whole lot of herbicides we have to work with. And that's kind of where we're sitting at with sesame. It's still a really nice option for Oklahoma. It's very drought tolerant, very heat tolerant, so those long dry Julys that we're going to get, it can work its way through it pretty nicely. It's also really nice, especially our guys that just do summer crops. It's a broadleaf in the system, which is really good. And so our two biggest crops that might see the biggest push this year being sesame and cotton. Nice to see a broadleaf getting in the option or getting in the system, especially if you're a traditional grass farmer during the summer with corn and milo. So, but never count out the things don't sell the whole farm to a new crop that you don't know how to grow. Make sure you still have those old standbys that we can almost guarantee will get a yield and some profit off of.
And let's talk about no-till systems and those producers that are looking at a fallow year this year. Is that going to be the best option for some of this land?
It really depends. I really like fallow years. You know, it's harder because you're not pulling profit off of that year. But in Oklahoma, our soils being a little more fragile than the Midwest. We can't always look toward the Midwest. Our soils are a little more fragile. Our summers are a lot more harsh. And so going into a fallow year, especially if you have some weed problems, that's a really good thing. We always hear guys that we want to bring steel out into a no-till system because we have resistant weeds. Right. A fallow year is a good time to actually get out there and control it with a wide array of herbicides that you have available to yourself now. I mean, even some of our just broad spectrum will attempt to kill everything on the field. That's a good option. So if we are going into a fallow system, especially if we don't get a whole lot of rain between now and May, a fallow system might be your best thing to kind of help clean up some of the land, get some of that pigweed or the mare's tail or any of those grasses out, and really set everything right for when we do get rain. It's best for our summer crops. We don't push it. If we get just a little bit of rain to where we can get something in, that's good, but don't sell out all your acres if we don't have a whole lot of soil moisture. Remember, it's not just what we get, it's what we have stored in the soil, and right now we have very little stored in the soil. So if we can get some nice timely rains between here and March or April, yeah, it's time to maybe think about going into that summer crop. But if not, we're laying fallow out, getting ready for wheat next year, getting ready for canola. It's a good time to really clean up those fields.
Okay, thank you much, Josh Lofton, our cropping systems specialist here at Oklahoma State University. And for more information on any of what he talked about today, visit our website, SUNUP.okstate.edu.
We're entering that time of the year when the calving season for many Oklahoma farms and ranches is beginning or maybe already underway. While we're checking those cows and heifers this spring, the chances are that we'll run into a situation that requires some extra special attention. And what I'm referring to is when we examine a cow or heifer and find that the hind feet are coming first and not the front feet and the head as we would expect in most presentations during the delivery process. Research out of Montana a number of years ago with over 13,000 head of cows over a 15-year period of time illustrated that we would expect about 1.6% of the calves born to come backwards. Another 0.6%, very small percentage, would actually be what we call a breech birth. That's when the calf is coming backwards, but the feet are not presented, only the buttocks and the tail. And in this situation, I just would recommend that you call your local veterinarian and seek help as soon as possible, because that breech birth will not be born either naturally or with your assistance. Probably is going to result in a C-section as the only way that they will be delivered. But back to the backwards calf, that's one that, yes, we can deliver, but we need to understand the physiology and the anatomy of the cow and the calf as that calf is going through the birth canal. Take a look at this particular illustration that shows a backwards calf and note the position of such things as the tail head of the calf and the umbilical vessels or the umbilical cord. Now, when that backwards calf has gone far enough through the birth canal, or with your assistance gone far enough through to where you can see the tail head actually appearing out in the world, the tail head of that baby calf, note where the umbilical vessels will be. They will be underneath that calf, pinched off by the pelvic rim, at least partially, and in a lot of cases maybe completely clamped off. Researchers in Europe a number of years ago decided to find out how long that umbilical cord can be clamped before it really compromises the health of the calf. And the outcome was that at 4 minutes complete clamping off, they lost 1 out of 5 calves. If it was clamped off longer than that, they lost all of the calves. Then, as we work with that backwards calf, and bring those hips through the pelvic opening and the tail head appears, realize we've got 4 minutes or less in order to get that baby calf completely delivered and started breathing. So that's why it's very, very important to understand the anatomy of the calf and the cow. When that tail head appears, we want to get that calf completely delivered as quickly as possible. Find a stiff straw, stick in his nose, clean out that area around the mouth and the nose, and get that calf started breathing as soon as possible. That way we'll have a better chance of saving any backwards calves that we might have this year. And as always, as we're talking about calving, I'd encourage you to go to the SUNUP website. That's SUNUP.okstate.edu. Look under show links, and there's a link there to our pamphlet called Calving Time Management for Beef Cows and Heifers. Got a lot of information about working with these cows and heifers at calving time. And we look forward to visiting with you next week on SUNUP's Cow Calf Corner.
We're joined now with our Extension Cattle Beef Specialist, Dr. Dave Lalman. And Dave, spring calving season is already underway in a lot of parts of the state. What are some things that producers need to start thinking about, when processing cattle?
Well, so the branding time processing usually occurs around 40 to 90 days of age. And one thing that we might talk about is implants. We talked about that a little bit last year. Continues to be an opportunity for cow-calf producers because consistently the experiments that have been done on that show that you increase weaning weights by 4 to 6%.
Now, there's been, in regards to those implants, there's kind of a misconception that those might have an impact on premiums. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. So it's interesting, a little over 20 years ago, near as we can tell, somewhere in the neighborhood of 65% of cow-calf producers were implanting either all of their steers or let's just say some of their calves. Today, that number has dropped to around 30%. So we've been looking into reasons for that, what might have caused that. Certainly there's no change in the Food and Drug Administration's approval for the use of those products, so we know they're safe. So I think probably your comment about premiums is probably the culprit. And Superior Livestock has done a wonderful job analyzing their data over the years, and it shows very recently they've analyzed their data, and it shows that with a study with over 5 million head of cattle, that there is no premium for calves that were not implanted. In other words, you would have to have to give up that 4 to 6% or 20 to 30 pounds of additional calf weaning weight, you would have to have a substantial premium to make up that difference in calves that are not implanted. And their data says that it just is not available.
And going forward, if there's some producers out there who want to go ahead and use some of these calf implants, there is a shortage in one of those, correct?
Yeah, we're getting reports that some of the implants can be difficult to get, and so they need to recognize that there's some alternatives or options there. Well, there are 3 products that are cleared for use in both steers and heifers during the suckling phase or the pre-weaning phase, and those 3 products are Rowgrow, Synovex C, and Component EC.
Should producers implant calves or heifers that they're going to keep on as replacements?
That's a common question, and quite a bit of research has been done in that area. And what it shows is that if they are implanted at that branding time, 80, 90 days, give or take, there is no detrimental impact on the reproductive performance in the future. A lot of producers will choose just not to implant heifers they intend to keep for replacements, and that's a wise thing to do. But just know that if you happen to implant one at branding time and then decide later to keep that female as a replacement, it's not going to, the studies show that it shouldn't do any harm to their performance for years to come.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Sure.
For a complete list of the approved implants, go to our website, SUNUP.okstate.edu.
Some producers are considering planting summer crops. Kim, let's talk about those alternatives.
Well, I think what we got here is the wheat crops dry. You got it drought. The 90-day forecast is for above average temperatures. I think producers are concerned about getting this wheat, and maybe they're going to have to plant some alternative crops. Then, of course, some producers have followed, and they're just going to plant either corn, milo, grain sorghum, soybeans, or cotton.
With that in mind, what is the market offering for harvest delivery of those crops?
Well, if you look at corn, of course, it depends on whether you're in central Oklahoma or the Panhandle. And in central Oklahoma, the basis is about 60 cents under that Chicago Board of Trade December corn contract. If you're out in the Panhandle, it's about 10 over. That contract's around $3.95 right now, so that puts our corn price between $3.35 and $4.05 in the Panhandle. Milo is about the same basis as corn, some places a little higher, a little below, but again, it's off that December corn contract, so that's $3.35 for milo. Soybeans is 90 cents underneath the Chicago November soybean contract. That contract's right at $10 and a nickel, something like that. So it gives you about a forward contract or harvest price for soybeans of $9.10 a bushel.
Based on extension crop budgets, what are the break-even prices?
Well, of course, those budgets, I got 2 or 3 different people make budgets for me, and they're all over the board. But let's look at corn and say 80 bushels per acre for that break even over variable costs, not fixed costs or total costs, just variable costs. It's about $3.35. Of course, that's what the market's offering right now. Milo at 50 bushels an acre is a break even was also $3.35, and that's right where the market is. Now soybeans at 25 bushels an acre, the break even is at $8.50. The market's at $9.10, so that's where the profit is for soybeans. And if you'll listen to producers and you look at what's going on out of the market, the big buzz is about soybean and increased soybean acres. So I think the market right now is offering break-even to slightly prices for that.
Okay, we can't let a week go by without talking about wheat. Of course, let's talk about the break-even costs for wheat and what the market is offering.
Well, if you look at wheat and say 35 bushels an acre, the break-even's about $4.31, and guess what the market's offering?
What?
$4.30, you know, plus or minus 20 cents wherever you are in the location. You know, we've talked about wheat, and this is variable cost. You've got to add probably another 40, 50 cents a bushel for fixed costs to cover total cost, which would get that break even up closer to, you know, $4.90 to $5. We talk about if you get protein and test weight on this coming crop, I think we're going to get that price up closer to covering that total cost and maybe up around $5, but we got to get the test weight and the protein.
Okay, Kim, thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet weather report. The good news is that it rained in Oklahoma this week. The bad news is that only 3 Mesonet sites recorded more than a 1/4 inch from Tuesday's rain. Idabel had 7/10, Broken Bow collected 51/100, and Valiant had 38/100. Areas in that green tip in southeast McCurtain County had more than an inch of rain. So while we cheer for folks near these Mesonet sites, it's a tragedy that the rain didn't reach more of us in the state. Those 3 sites with rain had 0 days on a Wednesday's map of the days since a 1/4 inch or more of rain fell. The count of days without at least a 1/4 inch of rain increases dramatically as we go from those zeros in the southeast to 131 days at Kenton in the Panhandle. These dry conditions have led 16 counties to implement county burn bans east of I-35. West of I-35, a governor's burn ban has been in force. Without meaningful rainfall, we can anticipate these burn bans to stay in place and other eastern counties to enact burn bans. Over on the temperature side, we've been on a temperature seesaw. It's cold, it's warm, then cold again. The last couple of days have been warmer after some frigid days. Wednesday morning, minimum air temperatures were in the single digits in and near the Panhandle. Hooker and Beaver dipped to 6 degrees. Moving east out of the Panhandle, lows were in the teens, rising into the 20s in eastern Oklahoma. For cattle, Monday morning was the cold one this week. Cattle comfort lows went from -10 at Freedom near Woodward to 15 at Broken Bow. The cattle comfort index values are a combination of air temperature, sunlight, wind speed, and relative humidity. These cold mornings follow a January month that came in 3 to 4 degrees below average on the eastern side of the state. It was 1 to 2 degrees cooler in southwestern, central, and northeastern areas. Northwest Oklahoma was average, while Guymon and Boise City were slightly warmer than average. January dew point temperatures ranged from 4 degrees below average up in the northeast to 8 degrees below average down in southwest Oklahoma. This was on a par with dry Januaries in 2009 and 2014. 2014 handed farmers the poorest wheat crop in 56 years. Wheat first hollow stem soil heat units continue to build. As of Wednesday, green, yellow, and orange areas for early group varieties were ready to be scouted. Only Valiant and Newport had enough heat units for middle group varieties. The place to check wheat stems is on ungrazed plants in fence rows. We're past due for some rain. Our hope is that we all get some soon. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Mesonet Weather Report.
Finally today, a progress report on NoTill Oklahoma. On this, its 10th anniversary. We take you to Pottawatomie County to learn more.
Fallow fields every 7 to 10 days.
NoTill Oklahoma is, for me, a really important conference that Oklahoma State puts on because it's a great opportunity that we put producers into interaction with each other. For this event particularly, we have producers have been doing no-till for 20 or 30 plus years, and then brand new producers. So there's an opportunity for interaction and learning. And it's not just learning from the old to the new. Some of the stuff that these guys have been no-tilling for 5 or 6 years actually are learning things that can help some of the guys who have been doing it for a long time. Now, no-till is so important for Oklahoma, primarily due to our semi-arid and our dry environment. The majority of our producers are no-till, are dry land producers. They don't have irrigation, so water management and moisture management are particularly important. And so when we get down to it, no-till in Oklahoma really comes back to a lot about water conservation. Now, we can stop the off-site movement of soil through wind erosion, but really hold that moisture. When we get into a dry spell, the ability for a soil to hold water better under no-till is so much greater. Has better roots, better infiltration, high organic matter, and it has that residue cover that really keeps water from evaporating.
Is the use of the cover crops?
I like to come out and just see people that are doing similar things to I'm doing in my part of the world. I mean, you can see on the internet a lot about what people are doing, but to get with guys that are doing it in your area, I think really helps. We're all probably facing similar issues, and getting together and seeing how people are overcoming some of the challenges right in our area, I think is good.
This is our 10th conference, and that's why we have a lot of our first morning, we have a lot of looking back. Then we've got a lot of the producers on a panel coming up who were in a video produced in the mid-90s, a no-till promotional video produced in the mid-90s. And we have those guys coming back to talk about, what has changed since then.
Government passed.
We're still basically doing the same thing we was back then, and making use of the newer technologies. But I think it's important because anytime you can meet with other guys that are no-tilling, you can usually pick up a few ideas that might help you, even if it's just an equipment adjustment or equipment attachment.
The interaction we get, whether it's during the breaks, that's why we have long breaks. The interaction during the breaks, the interaction after the conference is over, and the discussions going back and forth, that's where the learning really happens. It's that one-on-one that you can dig in and really break down the different aspects of the production systems and the challenges and the wins. Producers will have tight-knit groups within their communities, and they'll know everybody around them and talk to them in the coffee shop. But they don't often get out and see what's happening around the state. So at this point, we'll be tying people from Elk City, in with Ottawa County, in with the Panhandle, and they get to really see the diversity outside of their local community.
I'm sitting by a new producer right now who's going to take over his late father's farm, and he's so full of questions, and I feel like I can actually help him, get started, and I feel good about that, helping other people.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime on our website and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at sunup.